Hello and welcome to Tabletop Oddity. My name is Jay, and today FFG have given us a little bit of a Valentine's Day gift. They have given us an updated rule reference guide for Star Wars Legion with some pretty interesting and, in my opinion, good changes. Of course, we've got rules for all the new stuff, Dauntless, Infiltrate, all that kind of jazz. And yeah, I've got a list of all of what I can see as the important changes and updates, but we'll have a quick look at the rules reference guide as well, and yeah, we'll go from there. Before I do that though, if you like the video at the end of the video, then do click like, and if you're not already subscribed, then do consider doing that, as it really does help. Crack on, guys. Yeah, so I'll just show you the rules guide, and then I'll get my notes up so I can actually see what I've written. And yeah, I might have missed stuff. It's, you know, this isn't a comprehensive guide to everything. It literally came out a couple of hours ago, if that, and I've had a quick look through and picked out the most important bits as far as I can see it. So we've got all the rules here. You can see we've got Armor X, which we already sort of knew about, Compel, Cunning, Danger Sense, all that kind of stuff. If you really want to have an in-depth look at them, then please do just go on the website and download it yourself. A couple of interesting ones here is obviously we've got the rules for transport, how you transport people and units and that kind of thing. And we've got this weapons disrupted, which basically replaces weapons disabled. But we'll go through all of this in a second, but let's have a look at one of my favourite changes, which is right at the end. It's in the errata, and it's the change to limited viz, which I was literally moaning about on the Discord the other day, but some people were saying they like it. Essentially, limited viz now changes the, during the first round, units cannot perform, it changes that, and it says during the first round, units cannot perform ranged attacks beyond range 2. So line of sight doesn't matter, you just can't attack if you're beyond range 2. It's pretty much now if you're one guy's in range 2 and he's your leader and the rest aren't, you can still shoot. Fantastic, fabulous change. So let me put that away, and let me just have a look at my notes that I'll bring to the centre, and we'll go through the changes that I can see are the big changes. If you see anything else, do whack it in the comments below and I'll pin it if it's a massive change that I've missed. But yes, so the first one is you can now go base to base with yourself. You can obviously do that if you're in the same unit. You could always do that. But now if you've got one unit here and another unit here, they can both base to base contact with themselves, which you never used to be able to do. And it led to little funky situations where it was awkward, like you wanted to get as close as you could, but you had to get a little bit away and it was just a faff. Now you can simply do it. You can't go base to base with an enemy unless you're engaging, but that's fair enough. You can now heal repulsor vehicles and ground vehicles with the treat repair droid, not the treat one, that's the medical droid, with the repair guy. Makes sense, fantastic. Overhanging is now legal if the models are stable. So we had a bit of an all faff, like if you had a little slight overhang on a ledge, you technically couldn't do it. It wasn't legal. Now you can pretty much overhang as long as the model's stable and not wobbly everywhere. It says crack on, which is fantastic. And because like you were always allowed to sort of like angle yourself on barricades and stuff like that, but then the question was, are you then overhanging? What constitutes a level? It was all a little bit weird. So just to say you can now overhang if your model is stable is a great change in my opinion. The transport rules, I'm very briefly going to try and surmise the transport rules because it is obviously longer than what I'm going to say. Essentially, it is as we expect. You take the wound if you're inside the vehicle. I'm not sure, I haven't read the rule for closed. I suspect maybe if you take a wound in the closed ones, maybe you don't take a wound like you do if you're in an open transport. You do not get to shoot out of an open transport. You don't get to like fire or anything. You just get to use your, when you activate, you can move out of it and carry on as normal. Your commander range still counts if you're in the transport. You actually get to measure, I think, from anywhere of the transport, which is pretty good. And yeah, getting in and out, essentially, it's like you do a movement 1 in. You can deploy in it, I'm fairly sure I read. Although I should have just double checked, but I'm fairly sure you can deploy in it. And so to get out of it, it's a movement 1 out of it, that's disembarking. Now, if the vehicle does one move action, then you get, and then you activate inside it, you can then you can disembark, which is the movement 1, and then shoot or do a second action. Whereas if the vehicle did 2 actions, you can only disembark, and that you can't like charge or anything, you just get a movement 1 out of it. hopefully that sort of explains it. It's a little bit tricky. I probably need to go through and read it all. If that was wrong, then I apologize. I suggest obviously you just go and read through it, but we have the transport rules now. It's just going to take a little while to digest it. I'm trying to get this video done before Katie gets home because it's Valentine's Day and I've got food on downstairs and poof, you know what it is. The limited viz change, I love it. It was just frustrating to have to do it per model, and you could catch people out in games with it, and it just felt really weird. I didn't like it. This is simple, reduces the complexity of the game in line with the rest of the game. Fantastic change. Infiltrate, there is nothing there saying that you can't deploy onto an objective. So the recover the supply shenanigans is all good to go as far as we can see. And for those of you who don't know, Infiltrate basically allows you to deploy anywhere on the board. If you are the first unit to deploy, for example, and you deployed yourself right on the middle of the recover the supply, you could go first if you with a 1-pipper, pick up the box, run away. And that's almost guaranteed with an Infiltrate. There are a couple of ways around it. I do have a video talking about it if you want to have a check about it, if Infiltrate's going to be overpowered. But yeah, it doesn't seem like FFG think it is overpowered. They're obviously happy with it the way it is, so you can just deploy anywhere as far as we know. The compulsory move has changed a little bit. I think it says you're allowed, I think, half the diameter of your base to go back a little bit if you can't fit instead of crashing, which is very lenient on the compulsory move. I'm not necessarily a fan of that change. I think it should be if you can't fit you die, but whatever, that's fine for me. Weapons disrupted is actually quite different. So we used to have weapons disabled, and that was when you got a vehicle that hit its resilience value, you rolled a surge. Your opponent could essentially then get rid of one of your weapons. Now they can disrupt one of your weapons, and what that does is it reduces your dice of that weapon in half, rounded up. So if you had 6, it goes to 3. If you had 5, it still goes to 3. And the colour of the dice is actually the attacker's choice. So if you disable my 3 white, 3 black weapon, I can still use 3 of the black. I don't have to use the white. So it just balances that out. It was very skewy. Like, if you got the weapons disabled, it was just such a random chance thing that I didn't like it. This sort of smooths it out, and now any of the results are sort of like bad but not completely like the worst thing ever. That was weapons disrupted. And one final thing that I want to mention is one that breaks my heart, is that you are now officially allowed to withdraw into melee. I don't think you can melee into the same unit, although I didn't actually read that myself, but I read that in the Discord. It doesn't look like you can melee into this. You can withdraw into the same unit, but you can withdraw into a melee with another unit, which basically lost me my game in the online team league. I was pretty much winning without that move, and yeah, I lost. Well, now that I've seen it though, I'm not going to let that happen again, especially now that it's codified in the rules that you 100% can. I'm going to keep my eye out for that. But that's all the main changes that I have personally seen. I'm very quickly going to check the Discord. We're going live. We're going to check the Discord, see what happens. Nothing really has been talked about, so we're just going to call that a day. They're the big changes that I have seen. To go through the rule book and pick out examples would have taken forever, so I've just decided to write down what I thought were the most important changes. And for me, I really like the limited viz change, as I said right at the very start. The Infiltrate one is a little bit worrying, but people were saying, well, if you've got Scout or Recon Intel, you could literally deploy off the objective and then move on to the objective anyway. So is it really worth doing that? Withdrawing into melee is just one of those. I like the weapons disrupted change. I think smoothing out the randomness is a good thing for vehicles, because vehicles weren't in a great position anyway necessarily. So I like that one. Yeah, the transport rules. A lot of people were hoping you'd be able to shoot out of an open transport, but I feel like that would make them probably too powerful on the other end of the spectrum, with them being too weak. So they're my key changes. If I've missed anything, as I said, do whack it down in the comments. I obviously read every comment and pretty much reply back to every comment, but if I've missed one thing, I'll pin your one thing. If I've missed multiple things, then I'll make a pinned comment myself with all the things I've missed in. But it's such a, like, there's so much stuff there, just, you know, like Dauntless, Compel, and it's nice to have them like written just in a nice, easy, digestible way. If you're interested in these, because what they do is that they do the main changes, but the base-to-base change isn't marked there. It's actually marked just randomly in the base-to-base bit. So It can be quite tricky unless you're going to go through the whole thing to figure out what has actually changed. But you know, that's not really the end of the world. But that's the end of the video. It's not the end of the world, but it is the end of the video. If you like the video, as I said, just like the video, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, then I mean, it's fine, but please do consider doing it, as it really does help. Other than that, guys, you should have a most beautiful day. Subscribe, support me on Patreon if you want to support the channel, like back reps and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, have a most beautiful day, and goodbye. Bye, guys.